It's NHL All Star Weekend. Who will show off their skills and which team will take home the big payday? Plus, more on the Elias Lindholm trade and what's next for the Canucks, all on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, campers, rise and shine, and don't forget your booties because it's cold out there tonight. That's right, woodchuckers. It's Groundhog Day. Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers. I'm here every Friday with Gil Martin of Locked On Islanders. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your best bet of $5 or more wins. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon to get started. You can find us over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Happy Groundhog Day, Gil.
Feel like we should be listening to I Got You, Babe, but yeah.
Well, there's no shadow this morning, so early spring, according to Puxatawny Phil. I think that the Vancouver Canucks were getting started on an early spring, way ahead of the trade deadline, acquiring Elias Lindholm, which was something that had kind of been in the rumors for a while now. And it seemed like they had been working on this behind the scenes for quite some time. It was kind of a big deal for both teams. And I think, this is one of these trades that's going to take a long time to figure out who won. I would never presume on this one. Given that there was, several pieces that went back to the Flames, including this year's first round pick.
Yeah. And look, in the NHL draft, most first round picks, and you got to figure Vancouver's pick will be late in the first round. It takes 3 years for most first round picks to even reach the NHL, let alone make an impact in the NHL. So, you got 2 prospects, 2 picks, plus Andrei Kuzmenko going back the other way. It will be a while before we really know the full extent of who won this trade.
Yeah, and Kuzmenko had to waive a no-trade clause in order for this deal to happen. It was all kinds of wild because everybody was on their all-star break, and Lindholm was on vacation, Kuzmenko was on vacation, and they had to have a meeting with Kuzmenko and the Flames in order for him to waive that no trade. But yeah, I think that Lindholm hasn't been as productive this season as he has been in the past, but I do think that, going to a team that's a playoff team, that it's as a contender this year, and they seem to want to make it happen sooner rather than later in Vancouver, as they've been playing so well all season.
Yeah, and I think, that should give him some juice, and then Kuzmenko should get a little more ice time and a little more opportunity to play. Hopefully he can get back to the form he had last season when he really had an outstanding first year in the NHL. Theoretically, for the players, it should be a win-win.
Right. I think so. And, there was a little history behind there. Jim Rutherford was with the Carolina Hurricanes when Lindholm was drafted by that team in 2013. So there was definitely that history there, and a desire by Rutherford, who's president of hockey operations with the Canucks now, to kind of bring him back. And there was some familiarity there. So I think, Lindholm feels a certain degree of comfort going to this team, knowing that he has, someone who has his back.
Yeah, that always helps a little bit. Somebody wants you, somebody who knows you, who is familiar with you, definitely helps. And then also just joining such a talented team right now that's hitting on all cylinders. That's got to be exciting.
Yeah, I think so as well. There's definitely some implications moving forward because now, depending on how the Canucks do this playoff season, is going to have a huge impact on the future of this team because now you'll have Lindholm on the expiring contract as well as Pettersson. And so, looking at their cap and looking at potential future deals for both these players, like how this season plays out is going to be a huge factor there.
Yeah, and then obviously, if you want to keep them, you got to fit them under the cap. So always a lot of moving parts involved in this deal in the big picture of it. We know what it's going to do in the short term, but the long term will take a long time to really figure out the full impact.
Yeah, they've got a couple of guys already. Well, JT Miller is locked up for quite some time at 8 million a year. But you've got Brock Besser with one more year on his deal at 6.65. So that's going to be part of what's under consideration there. And the Canucks blue line only has Quinn Hughes and Carson Soucy under contract for more than 2 years. So it is going to be a very complicated spring and summer for this team.
It will be, but I think it'll even. I get the feeling between now and the trade deadline, something else may happen with the Vancouver Canucks that may help them with their future cap situation. But that's just a hunch.
Yeah, and there had been talk that maybe Tanev would come back to the Canucks, and that still could happen in a
Mm-hmm.
future deal. But I know there have been rumblings about that. The other part of all this is Patrik Allvin got a 3-year extension as Canucks GM.
Yeah, and I can't say that that's shocking in just the way he's built this team. Made a lot of moves with signing JT Miller, Brock Besser, trading Bo Horvat to the Islanders, picking up players like Philip Roenick and Nikita Zadorov. So he's made a lot of deals and bringing in Rick Tocchet, obviously, a big
Right.
change for the organization that helped it for the better this year. So totally understandable why they would want to sign him to an extension. And congratulations to him. And wow, the Canucks really moving. Busy time right now in Vancouver.
Yeah, I definitely think Allvin earned the extension with how quickly I think they were able to kind of turn it around with the deals that they've made. And to your point about bringing in Rick Tocchet, I think that was a huge part of the turnaround with this team. And I think the fact that they've exceeded expectations this season says it all.
Yeah, he's been bold, he's been decisive, and his moves have paid off. So, yes, a well-earned extension.
Yeah, one of the interesting aspects of the Elias Lindholm deal was that it wound up that the Calgary Flames have nobody at the All Star game because he is now a Canuck. So that's kind of a bummer for Flames fans, but that's the way the cookie crumbles in the world of sports trades.
Yeah, timing is everything, right? I guess in the All-Star game, that will be his farewell as a Calgary Flame.
Yeah, I think so too. But there's so much to talk about related to the All Star game and All Star weekend, including the player draft, the skills competition, and more. We're going to get to all of that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. And FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58 between Kansas City and San Francisco, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets If your first bet of $5 or more wins, all you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
So it is All Star Weekend, Gil, and they added an extra day of activities like we've been talking about on the show. So for All Star Thursday, they brought back the player draft, and it was interesting, I would say. Um, I do want to say that I think the jerseys look really good.
Yeah.
I like them a lot. I think that they have like a Mario Brothers quality to them that I appreciate with the way the lettering looks, and the names were underneath like the nameplates are underneath the numbers, which is interesting. I've only seen that in women's hockey.
It's a nice little change of pace, and it makes for a special occasion. And again, they're going bold, and I like that.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I like just the primary colors. That's
Yeah.
what you got to go with. I think the draft itself, I would say it was a little uneven in terms of the presentation. I think that when you have like some celebrities who are comfortable with banter and some that are not,
Yeah.
um, it was a little awkward for them to get that going in terms of it having a smooth feel to it, especially given that hockey players are not generally known for their personalities.
Yeah, I mean, it could have gone smoother in that regard, but I think overall, most of the guys were having fun with this.
Yeah, I would say so. And it was kind of cute with Crosby not there that they had a Timbits kid out
Yeah.
there in his place.
Yeah, that was a cute moment.
As far as the picks themselves and the teams, there was definitely some behind the scenes negotiation that took place in order for the Leafs to end up together on that team. Of course, having it up in Toronto, that it was inevitable, but also like he kind of wanted a little wrench thrown in there with maybe Marner going somewhere else, but that was not to be.
Not gonna happen. And look, the advantage to that is obviously the crowd is going to be certainly pulling for Team Matthews. And I think it makes it easier for fans when if you do have multiple players representing your team, that they're all on the same team. You know who you're rooting for. You're not torn emotionally between two different teams. And I prefer it that way, but I understand why some people don't.
Yeah, you can go either way on it. I like it when players are split up on different teams and loyalties are divided, and especially when there's like a big paycheck, uh, at stake. I think that it increases the rivalry a little bit better, and it makes it fun. But
It adds a little spice, no question about that.
yeah, I like that. And I think that, in addition to the Leafs all ending up on Team Matthews, you had a little backdoor deal to get Sidney Crosby on Team McKinnon.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're friends from the same hometown. So that was obviously part of the deal as well.
Yeah, and look, it's all in fun. It's all done on a friendly basis, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this all plays out. The draft I like. I mean, it's kind of a fun activity. Why 6 o'clock Eastern time though? Why not do it in prime time?
They did have the rest of the activities in prime time.
Yep.
So, you had the PWHL showcase, and then you had the ceremony honoring the 67 Leafs team as part of that as well. So, I understand why it was the way it was. But you're right. I think, they could have given a little bit of extra push for the player draft, especially with, as we're going to get to in the next segment, talking about the skills competition and the fact that it's a limited number of players. So the draft was, other than the All-Star game itself, it was really the only chance that a lot of fans got to see their particular All-Star as part of the activities. Again, because the skills comp, not everybody is involved in this year. So I do think there's something to it. They also changed for this player draft how they did the last pick. In the past, we have had occasions where the last person picked got a car. There was that whole thing with Ovi wanting to get picked last so that he would get a car. Did not happen for him. I mean,
No problem.
really, dude can afford his own car. Let's be
Yeah.
real. But I think that it was cool. They had like the last 4 guys get up there, and they were given an envelope with their team. So it was kind of a random pick. The teams didn't actually have a last pick.
And thereby no player is embarrassed. I'll put that in air quotes by being the last guy chosen. Although if you think about it, if you're the last guy chosen among the best players in the NHL at this gathering, that's not that bad of a thing to be. There are plenty of guys who didn't make the All-Star game at all. But, that aspect of it. And then, you add the 1967 Leafs being celebrated and Dave Keon being involved. They tried to make it a very, they tried to make a very good presentation of it.
Yeah, they did. The other little aspect of it that I thought was interesting was the hot mic situation, where there were things that were said. First of all, there were some words you normally aren't allowed to say on TV that got through. But also, like the funniest moment to me was when Connor McDavid picked David Pastrnak. He said to him, like, "You got to try, man." Like, like assuming Pastrnak was gonna like half-ass it through the All-Star game, which that was definitely a moment for sure.
It was. And you wonder, how serious it was and how much, jokiness was behind it. But the cool thing is you sort of get a little window into the personality of some of these players when that happens.
Yeah, that's for sure. I did think it was interesting, speaking of Connor McDavid, that he went goaltender in the first round with Connor Hellebuck, considering that goaltending is optional in the All-Star game.
Well, defense is optional, so yeah, why not?
Yeah, yeah.
Checking is non-existent. Defense is optional, and goaltending, yeah. You could put no offense to the goalies because they do earn the right to be there. But sometimes I get the feeling they could just put like a plastic cardboard cutout with the little holes where you could score, and it wouldn't.
Yeah, a little shooter tutor. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. It is a thankless job being a
It is.
goaltender at
It's
the
very,
NHL.
very difficult. You're always facing breakaway after breakaway or 2-on-1 after 2-on-1. It's not hockey. You could say what you want about the All-Star Weekend. It's basically the best players in the world playing shitty, and it still has its entertainment value, but it's not a hockey game in the traditional sense of the word.
Yeah, I would say so. But yeah, I think they did their best. It was a lot of fun, and Michael Buble was just happy to be there, man.
Yes.
Just happy to be there. I think that was the thing that stood out to me the most, was that Buble was just like he was just like the happiest person alive.
He was
so
thrilled. He was in awe, and that was great.
Yeah, good for him. As far as the PWHL showcase, I actually thought that was a lot of fun. I've watched a bunch of the games this year, and it's been so much fun. A lot of really good competition in the league. And I thought it was really cool that Ella Shelton, who scored the first goal in the PWHL league proper in their opening game, also scored the first goal in the showcase. Yeah, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and, the defenders were really the players that stood out in this game. Savannah Harmon had 3 goals and 2 assists in this one. She's one of my favorite, defenders in the women's game, as is Renata Fost, who plays for Toronto. Love her as well. She's my Canadian I'm allowed to love on it. Well, other than Marie-Philippe Poulin, who everybody loves. But um, as a Team USA fan,
There you go.
Renata Fost is my Canadian defender that I really love. But yeah, it was a good game, good turnout. I almost thought their celebrity captains were better than the NHL ones. Well, yeah, like Megan Duggan was the coach of the team.
Yeah, yeah.
John Kyle Jones, who's the WNBA MVP, who plays for the New York Liberty, where I live. Fan of hers. And Tessa Virtue. Like, you cannot get more Canadian queen than Tessa Virtue. So loved having her there as well. But a good time was had by all, and tonight is the skills competition. And we will get to talking about that coming up next. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league, including this very show. Go to Locked On Sports Today over on YouTube and subscribe. So, Gil, the skills competition, like I said, different this year because they're only having 12 of the All Stars involved. And so you don't get to see your guy if he's not one of these 12. 8 of the 12 players, you can't really argue with the list per se. They are the best of the best, but 8 of the 12 play on Canadian teams, only 4 play on American teams. So that's a little wonky as
Hmm.
far as appeal goes. But again, you cannot argue with I think, with the players chosen. You got Nathan McKinnon, William Nylander, Cale Makar, Matthew Barzal, JT Miller, Nikita Kucherov, Quinn Hughes, Connor McDavid, Elias Pettersson, Austin Matthews, Leon Draisaitl, and David Pasternak.
Yeah, I mean, this is the cream of the crop, and not everybody is in every event, but even so, I like the way they've divided this up, and it should make for some very entertaining. And I'm eager to see who wins some of these competitions.
Yeah, of course, I think the 2 premier events are the fastest skater and the hardest shot,
Yep.
I would say. Although it is I was talking about this on the Lockdown Flyer show as well. But it is interesting if you look at the NHL Edge stats about who's had like the fastest speed bursts in the NHL as of now this season. The only player that's in the fastest skater competition that's in the top 10 is Connor McDavid.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess, speed by itself isn't everything. You have to be able to do something while you're moving that fast. But yeah, interesting that McDavid is the only one who had that, burst in the top 10. But look, I mean, Nylander, Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar, Matthew Barzal, and Connor McDavid, that's going to be a fun competition.
I think so. I think so as well. Always have to point out Owen Tippett has the fastest speed burst in the NHL as of right now. Anyway, the hardest shot competition. Also, there's nobody in the top 10 who had the actual hardest shot per NHL Edge in this competition, and but still should be fun with Austin Matthews, Cale Makar, David Pasternak, JT Miller, and Elias Pettersson.
Yeah, that should be a good one. And the crowd is going to be going all out for Austin Matthews.
Yeah, I would say so. I think no doubt about that as well. Um, I think, of the other events, I do like the accuracy shooting just
Yeah, that's my
because,
favorite.
who can hit those targets the fastest. And when, you get somebody that can do it, without any misses. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I always like that skill, and they're being timed, obviously, but to make those accurate shots and hit those targets, I always found that that's an important thing because you're doing speed, you're doing accuracy, and in a real NHL game, that's really vital if you're going to score goals.
Yeah. Any of the other competitions that you like?
I like stick handling. Always, it's sort of a dying skill in some ways compared to the way it was years ago. But I always admired players who could really stick handle and move up and down the ice and hold on to the puck. So I always look forward to that one. How about you?
Yeah, I've been wondering if Michigan goals falls under stick handling or
Yeah,
falls under like a shooting challenge. I don't know. Like,
yeah, that's a good.
um,
They could do a separate competition on that.
yeah, they could. Yeah, and I like passing in terms of, like guys that can do a really good sauce pass
Yep.
through traffic. Like that is a remarkable skill. And so I appreciate all of that as well. Of course, they'll have their usual obstacle course, like relay stuff going on. The other interesting thing about this is that because it's not everybody involved, it's an individual competition. It's not a team competition. So like the guy with the most points walks away with that $1 million check.
Yeah, yeah, not bad for a few hours work, right? I mean,
Right.
it adds again, just adds a little juice to the event.
Yeah, I think so. That I think, if you're not going to have everybody involved, making it an individual competition, I think kind of balances that a little bit. Everyone in it is going to do 4 out of the 6 events. So, I think it just depends on, if you get the competitions you want and you can rack up those points, but it should be a lot of fun. The skills competition will be at 7 o'clock tonight Eastern. You can catch it on ESPN and Sportsnet in Canada. The game itself is Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock Eastern. And who do you think is going to win this one?
Ah, I don't know if it's because of the talent or if the fix is in. Team Matthews, I think, is going to. They're the favorite in my mind. How about you?
Yeah, I'm thinking so, and I'm looking at their goaltending with Jake Ottinger and Igor Shesterkin, um, who I think they'll try. So I think that's a big part of it as well. Of course, your representative from the Islanders, Matt Barzal, is on that team, so you have reason to root for them.
I do.
Travis Konechny is on Team McKinnon, so that is who I will be rooting for. But would not be shocked if Team Matthews wins it all. That is for sure.
We shall see. It'll be. Look, let's just have fun with it. That's the bottom line. This is the best players or a group of the best players in the NHL just getting together and having fun in a friendly competition for the weekend and showing off their skills. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do.
Absolutely. All right, that will do it for today's show. Of course, Gil will be back on Monday talking with hosts from around the Locked On NHL network on what's going on in their teams. And we will be back next Friday to wrap up the week that was for next week and look ahead to that weekend's action in the NHL. Have a great Friday, everyone.